Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Perform It Live's 5 ways that remote streaming will change your workflow. I'm John DL.
And I'm James Banfield. And looking forward to taking you through some of the updates, specifically some of the stuff that we've been working on, which hopefully you guys will think is as cool as what we do. So, without further ado, actually, should we do some shout outs? Could people give us a rough indication of where they're kind of connecting in from?
Yeah, I've got a Nemesis 0720. Hi to you. Welcome. Be great to find out where you're calling in from. Today, I've actually had a number of people come through LinkedIn just saying they're looking forward to the webinar. So welcome. Great to see you all.
Yeah. Well, look, without further ado, why don't we kick off then, John, and we'll get into the thick of it. So
let's do it.
So as some of you may know or you may not know, a lot of our focus as a business has been on the streaming side of things, especially in the last kind of 5 to 6 months, where we've been launching new products and other bits and pieces. And as John knows, there's real time, and then there is real time.
There is.
What you're seeing in this video clip here is Pete, who's actually dressed up as Johnny Goblin on the call at the moment, and he's in a suit, and it's streaming to the cloud, back down again to the iPad, without a single PC involved in between. So we've got real-time streaming, face and hands, full body, going straight to the cloud and then back down again to an iPad. And it's not often you'd see these two things together, because normally they would be separated by hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles apart. But we put them in the same frame because it's the only way we can really prove how super quick the tech is, and demonstrate it. And this is the core tech, isn't it, John, of effectively what we've been doing in the background in terms of the director and other bits and pieces. And now we've taken this tech and integrated that into a streaming product of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's some crucial benefits that come with, having a extremely low latency or near zero latency, because we have the capability to essentially process that data instantaneously. And you'll see an example of this as we move through the webinar with a live digital character. They are able to respond immediately. So if there is a two-way interaction, for example, because the latency is so low, it is absolute real time. So you have this real level of engagement, potentially between a digital character and somebody else. And obviously you have this enhanced interactivity, because you've got this immediate response from the performer. And you can see that with Pete in this video clip, and his responses that are being delivered onto the iPad. And then you have things like synchronization. So you'll see, being able to ensure that, your camera tracks, the digital character. You can layer on top visual effects, and because the latency is so low, it's seamless. It creates a nice polished integration as well. And obviously seeing real-time feedback in real time allows you, pre-production or pre a live event, to actually test out, what's the look and feel of the experience. Does it resonate? Does it not resonate? What needs to be added? What needs to be subtracted? And so it creates a real rich live experience, and we'll show you some examples of that, where we've been sort of creating live experiences with audiences, and the power that brings out from that experience is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's just the reason we put this in as the first kind of slide is it really underpins everything else that we're about to show you, and some of it's where we're at now, and some of it's where we're heading. Hopefully you can kind of see some of the value of what this will bring to all types of production, animation production, live events, all of these type of things. Anyway, you'd normally use mocap, there's a completely new way that you can actually leverage this type of tech, because normally you would have a recorded file, which we do as well. But in this instance, what we're seeing more and more of now is the benefits of a real-time stream, is kind of circumnavigating the value proposition of a recorded production.
So, yeah, and sorry, James, I was just going to say, and I think on that point as well is, you know, if you're looking to produce content, as an example, and you have the capability to be able to create that content through a live stream, then obviously you're going to be able to accelerate your content outcomes, because you essentially capture and go. Whereas, as James has said, you know, you can either, you know, capture your mocap, export your file, do the necessary you know, stages to turn that file into a production ready file, to turn that into content, and you will know that's quite a long process. You know, even with some of the smart tech intersection at the moment that you can apply to FBX files. So this is a real fast way to be able to iterate content, and you to be able to shape it instantly as well.
Yeah, completely. So here's a diagram that you know, some of you may have seen, some of you may not have done, but it kind of gives an overview of how our workflow actually pieces together. So in the previous video, you saw that a person was wearing a suit which sits beneath the clothing, so it's an inertia suit. But then with the VR headset on, you also have 16 cameras that we're taking optical tracking from, and of course with the VR headset, the cameras actually move with the body, so you don't have dead zones. Well, you do have dead zones, but not in the traditional way that you'd find in an optical-based capture system. So you have a suit and a headset, and because the suit is able to do all the processing locally, we have dedicated edge processing on the suit. What that means is that anywhere there's a Wi-Fi connection, or anywhere where a mobile phone can be a hotspot, is a location where you can effectively stream live data from. And this really does mean that it changes the entire scope of what you would traditionally consider to be a mocap kind of production. You know, what do we mean by that? Well, you know, if you think about normal mocap production, it normally happens in a big studio with multiple cameras, and those cameras then are focused in a specific kind of capture volume. If you're in doing a mocap production with a suit, you tend to be in a fixed location, normally with a technician that has software and a PC and hardware nearby. And even with the latest kind of AI solutions that are working, you know, the best kind of data sets are still coming from multi-camera. And those type of solutions, a lot of them can't do live. And even when they can do live, it still requires a setup that's not that dissimilar to a studio. Yes, you can pop the cameras up in various locations, but you still need a very powerful PC to operate it. You need some expensive cameras, normally machine vision, that can be synchronized. Our performers are able to literally go anywhere, and although today it's a pretty grey and wet day in the UK, in the summer they'll actually be out in the parks doing jobs, and then when they're not doing jobs, they can sit down and relax, because that's the kind of flexibility that we kind of offer. And once the data's got to the internet, so you know, we're very efficient in the way we do this. It can then stream directly into a computer, into a phone or a tablet, and also into a VR headset. And this kind of level of functionality means that you can basically change the way you would do production in the future. We've got a slide on that in a second, but I don't know, is there anything you want to add on this, John? Because it's like, this is kind of like incredible tech when you consider no PCs are involved, no software to learn, no technicians, no studio.
I mean, I think our overarching principle was, where can we make the process as frictionless as possible, and as time efficient and as effective as possible. So that's from, you know, the motion capture system itself, through to transferring that data in real time, which has always been really one of our passion points, and then to be able to you know, connect remotely, anytime, anywhere, and then ultimately stream that through multiple devices. And as James said, that could be, you know, a computer, an iPad. It could be a bigger LED screen, for example. And you know, how can we make that more efficient? So how can we improve that pipeline by removing high cost sort of computer equipment? How can we improve and accelerate the processing live on the person through the tech that we use? So it becomes really simple and easy. And in fact, so much so now, if you were a director or an animator, you actually wouldn't have to be involved in any of the logistics. Essentially, all you need to be really good at is creating your vision and bringing your vision and your story to life. And if you can use an iPad and or an iPhone and have a clear brief of what you want, then you don't have to deal directly with any technology. You don't have to work with performers, because ultimately we provide these professional performers that integrate with the technology. And then we can either stream that experience live in real time against your vision, against, you know, the digital character that you might want, or the post-production content piece that you want. And, you know, you don't have to deal with the whole logistics and potential cost that fits between that pipeline. So that's really been why we call it the next generation system, because it is shrinking that pipeline down just to these key components that are fast, effective, efficient, and can deliver either real-time streaming and or recorded content.
Yeah, and on that note, actually, let's just jump onto the kind of first kind of key point. Is one of the things we've been able to do already is take the data that we're receiving from the cameras on the VR headset and animate a metahuman face. And obviously we could already animate the metahuman body in real time. So this is Pete, who's going to be joining us a little bit later on this call. And you can see here he's going through some various different facial animations, and he's pulling these in the headset. And as he's doing that, that's being bundled with his body data and then transmitted as part of our unique codec across the internet. And then it pops up on an app. So you can actually see the metahuman on an iPad. We've got it on an Apple TV, etc. So all of these things suddenly make everything kind of quite interesting in terms of the deployment of these incredible digital characters that you're able to achieve these days. So, you know, with all of the tools available to us, we can either create a character that looks like the individual, or we can create a character that looks completely different from the individual. In fact, we've got a couple of different projects at the moment. You know, one of them is looking at historical characters and bringing to life characters that are centuries dead, but being able to bring them to life in a digital realm moving forward. And that opens up a ton of, you know, interesting possibilities of what this type of technology could allow in the future, where you're trying to do intuitive storytelling, where you can actually do it in real time with performers acting out that character's persona in real time. So it's it's an interesting beast there. And I think, John, you know, the interesting thing we find about this is that we get so used now to seeing metahumans, and we pull apart all of the small things that we're all working on all the time. But I think your wife pointed out and asked, you know, when did Pete get his teeth done?
yeah, she did. I mean, sometimes it's you know, when you're living and breathing this day in, day out, you can't always see the wood from the trees. And we have an incredibly critical eye on what we think is good and what isn't, because we're very conscious when you start moving into sort of metahuman territory. It's not difficult to move into what we all know is the uncanny valley territory. And does it look quite right, or does it feel quite right? And I did show my wife a clip. This was a couple of weeks ago. And I do it randomly. It's not that I just pull random people off the street, but it's, you know, to ask them what do they think. But it's always good to get a sense of, you know, people's perception, because it's likely to be very different from mine and probably from James as well. And her reaction initially was, "Oh, where did where did this guy get his teeth done? They look amazing. And it wasn't until I said, well, actually, it's not a real person. She was a bit like, oh, and we've tested that across a number of people, and we get similar types of feedback because we are pushing the fidelity on the detail of the metahuman. Certainly, if you saw from where we started to where we are now, if we did a side-by-side comparison, it's poles apart in terms of how we can set up a metahuman to get closer to that reality. And essentially, a lot of the time we use the metahuman because we use it as our benchmark of quality for our digital characters moving forward that might not be metahumans. So essentially, we know that if we get really strong fidelity and the metahuman as our gold standard, if you want, is really strong, that will translate significantly to a digital character that isn't a human. And we've seen that out in the field with projects that we've been involved with. So that's how we use our metahumans, knowing that you have to sort of traverse this uncanny valley technical side, that it's close to human, but it's not quite human in some respects. But we are, we're getting there.
Yeah, for sure. And then that kind of leads us into kind of point 2 is, now that you've got the ability to have metahumans being driven in real time via a stream, then it opens up this other possibility of having multiple performers and multiple connections all coming into like a virtual space. So the director can be in one part of the planet, the performers can be spread across the others, and they'll all join in a virtual space in real time with full body, hands, face, and limbs connection. And in this video clip that's here, what you can see is on the far right is actually an early prototype of our Vision Pro app. So we will have Vision Pro and Quest Pro and Quest 3, the ability for the director to be able to connect with performers and see them in 3D space, in the 3D space that they're in, and actually wander around those performers as they're acting out upon their instruction. Or it may well end up being from a streaming perspective that we actually see this as the deliverable. So having the performers acting out a scene and sequence, and the audience is not one director is the audience. The audience could be 100 deep in terms of the streaming. So we actually have been testing the multiple streaming component out very recently with huge success. So yeah, lots more to show further down. But this is the kind of the key thing that really changes the way people work in terms of streaming. And this is where we think the huge production opportunity sits, is we've come accustomed to this ability of remote production because we had to, because of the pandemic. And now we feel a bit more comfortable with it. The possibilities of having the best performer that exists anywhere on the planet could be actually the one driving your character or being the person in this scene. Or if it's a theatre production, that theatre production doesn't need to physically exist in a specific location. It can be a virtual theatre production where people from across the world collaborate on a story and a narrative. And these are the type of things that we're kind of working with at the moment in terms of R&D, but also projects at customer level as well, which is super exciting stuff to see, because in order for all of this to happen, that first video clip with the low latency is the key to unlocking all of these type of technologies, really.
Yep.
So I'll move on to the next one, because this is kind of close to our heart. And yeah, John, do you want to explain to the audience what they're seeing here? If anyone has any questions, by the way, do pop them in. We'll do our best to monitor the feeds.
So I suppose if you knit everything together in terms of low latency and streaming and remote production, this is a great example of it knitted together and being demonstrated at the Leap show, which we were in a couple of weeks ago in Saudi Arabia. And we have a performer who's wearing the motion capture system and the headset, and they're based in the UK, and they're streaming live as a digital character, in this case a goblin, into a holographic display. And what we were also able to do there is to be able to enable the performer to directly engage with the audience as well. So the goblin or the metahuman, as you're seeing in that little video clip, are able to, wave, communicate, and dialogue with the audience. And I mean, from a marketing perspective and a brand awareness perspective, it was quite amazing. Sort of stood on the side watching it, because you'd often get people walking by, stopping, looking, not quite sure what they were seeing, but also then getting their cameras out, taking videos, as you can see here, and then lots of videos. So if you're interested in user-generated content, which for most brands is a godsend, because most people tend to have more trust in what other people's perspectives are than a brand. It's very, very valuable. So this real-time interaction of a digital character that we created, or the metahuman, created quite a stir, and certainly in a holographic box, which gives sort of that really strong depth perception of a 3D experience along with the interaction. So for us, it was a really good road test and benchmark, and validated a lot of the assumptions that we had about impact of a real-time animated character, and what would that have on an audience. And particularly the engaging part. I don't think we've got a picture here, but for the kids who arrived on scene, it was amazing, because the performer would be able to get down to their height and engage with them, and often their hands would be touching the screen, because they wanted to really interact and dialogue with the character. So it was quite incredible to watch that experience. And I think we also played a game. We also played rock, paper, scissors, or James did more than I did, because we wanted just to showcase the latency between, somebody, doing those actions and competing essentially against a digital character. And this certainly is going to mark the way that we're going to see sort of brands come into the marketplace now against sort of traditional marketing approaches, more immersive experiences, and more two-way interactive experience as well. And ways to bring a brand's IP to life, because whilst these are our digital characters, we can also create assets for brands and bring their brands to life and showcase them in, for example, this holographic box or big LED screens, or through the TV, or through other mediums as well. So we're not restricted there, but I think it's starting to change the shape of how immersive experiences, brands position themselves in the marketplace with the tools that are becoming available to them.
Yeah, and it was incredible to see just like how much of a showstopper this type of holographic technology is. This is Mirage, so they have a very unique way that they get that depth. They have like a deep box which creates this wonderful depth. And they can also stitch all the boxes together. And so what that basically means is that the performer has quite a large volume that they can move within, which opens up, a whole host of different things we can do. When we stitch the boxes together with like Mirage, for instance, and with the depth they've got, you end up with the a equivalent of the depth of a normal stage, or a shallow stage, I should say, not a big showcase stage, but you have this depth, and then you have this width, which gives enough space for digital characters to perform in. And we're doing some really exciting, cool stuff with Mirage at the moment, where all of this stuff is kind of leading to some really intuitive and incredible deployments in the future. And brands with IP, specifically brands that have very recognizable IP, is such a great way to get people to stop and engage, because it's a human-to-human engagement. And there's quite a bit of AI there. There's some robotics that are a little bit scary, and I'm sure they'll improve over time. But the one thing that really kind of captivated people is you ended up with a human-to-human engagement without any latency going on with that we're seeing with some of the AI, which a lot of the AI stuff is incredible and is definitely going to be kind of covering a very clear niche in the future as well.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, think just to add to that as well, I think what was really clear is, particularly with the Goblin, the emotional connection, because the facial blend shapes were so strong. It had a real connection. You know, we're very generally quite visual animals and creatures of being able to respond and pick up cues. And you know, the performer was really good at being able to feign, you know, surprise or sadness or anger or laughter. And it was quite incredible just to watch that come to life in real time in front of, you know, other people's and their response from it. So yeah, quite incredible, really, and very interesting. Funnily enough, a lot of the attendees would go down to the side of the box because they thought there was somebody in the box.
Yeah,
and then we were explaining. Yeah, then we were explaining to them, no, the performers in the UK were streaming them live as a digital character into this display.
Yeah,
you know, it was fascinating.
Yeah, and you know, point to note that was over a mobile phone because the local network didn't want to allow any form of video streaming and other bits and pieces, so it was quite restrictive. So we ended up just having the best unfiltered connection was actually getting a mobile phone hotspot, and that's what we did. So mobile phone streaming straight at the back of the box. We literally had a mobile phone plugged into its power as a hotspot. And that's what was driving the data going into this box, which, you know, we did it in the testing, so we knew that it was going to work, but we didn't anticipate using it actually on the day. But that's live events, and you know, it's great to know that the tech was going to hold up for 4 days, you know, at a show over a mobile hotspot. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think we must have been streaming 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
So you know, the performers were working hard. But you know, that's live events and live productions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not for the faint-hearted.
Not for the faint-hearted, but it had an amazing impact, and yeah, lots of engagement, and yeah, really fun kind of execution. And you know, this kind of like, you know, this can be scaled, and this is where we see a lot of opportunity at the moment. A lot of conversations going on in this area, whereas you take the same concept but you just scale it up, either as a 2D billboard or a 3D hologram. This in question is actually, you know, this is a giant holographic fan display using different technology to create the hologram, but it's in the Sphere in Las Vegas. And we're just using this because it's a great illustration of like how this technology could get scaled up. Now, they haven't done it in this instance, but the same technology that we used for the deployment in the Leap show can fundamentally be used for this type of deployment or just generally 3D billboards. And this is where we think that there will be a massive change in the future, where you have billboards that are far more interactive rather than just rolling recorded content constantly on a loop. They'll be far more interactive and engaging and be able to offer a truly unique experience every time someone sees them, as opposed to the same experience repeated over and over. And that's something that's quite exciting. A little bit too early to kind of give you all the details on some of that stuff, but there's some amazing stuff that's coming down our way at the moment that we're just working on in terms of the streaming side.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if you look at the market size opportunity of animated billboards, I think the last time I had a look, it's about 122 billion.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, and for brands, you know, and the animation market as well. You know, being able to get content, you know, that they're going to need a constant stream of content in the same way that social media does, etc. And this type of streaming allows for that kind of constant creation of real-time movement on a character. And that could be anything from a superstar player that's on a billboard outside a stadium to a warm-up act that's kind of coming in ahead of a music concert, for instance. There's so many different variations that you can look at in terms of giant LED displays, and you know, and there's a lot there to come. Some of which I can't talk about due to NDAs at the moment, but there's some amazing stuff that's not far away in terms of actually kind of hitting the marketplace, and you know, we'll be able to talk about them as and when they go live. Yeah. But yeah, incredible stuff.
Yeah, I think at the high level, James, the diversification in this particular sector is going to be huge.
Yeah. It's just next level. And we've all seen the sci-fi films. You know, if it's not Back to the Future 2, it's Blade Runner 2049. All of them are showing interactive holograms that engage with people. And sometimes it's a bit dystopian, but other times, the fun that can be had is the next level of entertainment, I think, and a next level of where streaming will go in terms of what its capability is. So
it's almost,
go for it, John.
Sorry, James. I was almost going to say it's like film predicts the future.
Well, yeah, in a previous life, I remember having a big pitch and being asked the question: isn't it funny these guys in the past, managed to predict the future today? And it's like, no, it's not funny. It's like the kids that grew up watching the sci-fi of the 80s ended up being the decision makers of the noughties and the tens. And these guys ended up driving the R&D and the visions to create what they saw in their childhood and make it become reality. And you just need to look at AI at the moment. AI was all over sci-fi in the kind of like late 60s, 70s, 80s. And it's now that we're seeing that some of the kind of their predictions of the future now turning true. Now, would we as a populace chase that if we hadn't seen that in the future? I don't know. Maybe Terminator wasn't strong enough visually to kind of dissuade us a little bit. I don't know, but it's my personal belief is that as we get inspired by these creative stories, and then we try and turn these creative stories into actual not fiction, but make them realize in the modern world as the technology improves and allows them to exist, which is effectively what those science fiction movies were all about back in the day. Still waiting for my flying DeLorean though. So one day.
That one seems to be a bit behind the curve.
A little bit, but we'll get there.
You get a jetpack though.
Yeah. So some of you may have noticed that there's Johnny Goblin is on the call at the moment. So Johnny Goblin, we're just going to bring him in a second. And what we actually have is of the 5 founders of Perform It Live, 3 of them are on the call at the moment, including Johnny Goblin, who's actually Peter Robbins in the background, if you didn't know. I'm just going to bring him into the forefront. Let's see if we can actually bring up Pete onto the screen. Let me just see if we can bring this up. So this is actually a bit of R&D that we're working on at the moment. Just to
James, whilst you're doing that, are there any questions? Please shoot them into the comment section.
Yeah, please do.
Glad to take any that arise, James. But if you want to introduce Johnny Goblin, feel free.
Yeah, if we bring him on now, John, let's bring Johnny on.
I hope you've made Johnny aware he needs to behave himself as well.
I'm sure he will do. Here we go. So, Johnny, would you give us a wave?
No, there he
is. So, fantastic. Can you show us off some of your karate moves, please?
Right, yeah.
Johnny has a tendency of wanting to show off on a regular basis. This is his alter ego. So you only need to give him a little bit of encouragement for him to take everything to the extreme.
I'll zoom in a bit on his face.
Yeah, hopefully, Johnny, you'll behave this afternoon as well.
So this is a prototype. So what you're actually seeing is Pete's in Reading. I'm in East Sussex, so there's about 150 miles between us, and we're just streaming here. Now, this isn't actually the app that we used at the Leap Show. This is actually an iPad. So we're streaming this straight into an iPad. So not a laptop. At the Leap Show, we had a laptop running a 4060, I think, an RTX 4060, and it was going straight into this. This is actually running off of an iPad app that we've created. We also have a version, as we said before, for the Vision Pro. And we've also done one for the Apple TV, which is, it's incredible. And what that basically really means is that we're able to stream into almost any platform now. And it cuts down the cost, and it makes things super simple, because you just literally launch an app and put the streaming code in, and then it connects with the performer that's been booked for that moment in time. Can you give us show us some of your disco moves, Pete, or Johnny Goblin? Sorry.
Oh yeah.
He's can you? Oh, there we go. We're going more John Travolta, Saturday Night Fever, which is one of Johnny's favourite repertoire. I think he practices this one constantly.
Yeah. So on the streaming, it may look a little bit jumpy because we're streaming this in real time, but you can hopefully get a sense of like where this type of technology can kind of go. And as it says on the screen there, please do let us know if there's something you would like to see. And yeah, appreciate
not gymnastics.
No.
Not today, anyway.
No,
yeah, we'll stop on the backflips. That's not going to work.
All right, so I've got some questions actually. So Thank you. So Nemesis is asking frequency 16 hertz ? Or higher. Nemesis, we're around 25.
So, and then there's a question on the motion capture room. So he's not in the motion capture room. Basically, Pete who's performing as Johnny Goblin here. He's in his office. So he actually has about, I don't know, what, a meter left and right of you, Pete, and not much back and forwards, I think.
Yeah, less than a meter this way. Probably me. Yeah, so I can do that way. If I did it the other way, I'll be kicking items.
Yeah, avoid that. And he's running, this is going onto an iPad app as well. So this is a prototype iPad app that we have for deployments on screens, and that we normally use a PC to do the to capture the data. The suit captures at 1,000 hertz. So it's taking 1,000 hertz of data and it's downsampling that to 25 hertz on the fly. When we do recordings, it actually the 1,000 hertz kind of holds. So you'll see a few little like lumps and bumps that just appear every now and then. But as we say, this is a prototype of a live stream.
Yeah, and if you've got any specific moves you'd like Johnny to perform on your behalf, please punch them into the comments. I'm sure Johnny will be delighted to become an entertainer. There you go. Nice,
Johnny, would you mind wiggling your ears for us and just showing some of the additional movements we've got set up as well? So there we go. And give us a wink.
I think, can you give us some strong Arnie? Thank you. Can you go into some of your your Arnie repertoire, please, Johnny? Johnny spends quite a bit of time down the gym, as you can see, but he's pretty versatile and he's got great facial expressions as well. So sometimes he can be quite full on and sad. No, Nemesis, we can't do cartwheeling. Maybe next time.
Big room, yeah.
Yeah. So what you can see is effectively, as I say, it's when you saw the videos where we were running it on a PC. This is now running on an iPad. We've got Apple TV working as well as a display. We're working on an Android deployment as well, so we can stream straight to a TV. So all of these type of display things, and the reason that we're focusing on these areas is mainly because normally you associate this type of technology with an incredibly high cost, and that big cost normally comes because you've got an A6000 processor going on in the background, 20 grand's worth of camera equipment, gen locking, all of that type of stuff. We're actually able to achieve this streaming on a much lower cost, and we're also able to actually do the streaming in a way that we can deploy it in various ways. So what I mean by that is we can actually have hundreds of screens attached to this stream. And with all of these screens and with all of these streams, we can actually change the angle and the viewing point. And we can also change the background. So I can change this to a white background if I'm doing kind of like a kind of control of what we saw in Mirage Box, or we can change it to a black background, which is what you actually need for Pepper's Ghost. We could also have Johnny in an environment. So if he's doing a stream, So, if Johnny was giving us a kind of the top 10 tips on gaming, for instance, and this, Johnny was the main character, you haven't got enough fingers, Johnny. So we could be using this as a live stream where he could be answering some of the questions that are coming in. And keep in mind, Pete's wearing a VR headset, so the capability of transporting what Pete sees to the environment is in. There's lots of flexibility in that. There's an abundance of things we can do in various different sports, for instance. So lots of opportunities, lots of different components. But at the heart of it, it's real-time streaming is at its core. And this is not the finished product yet. There's you'll see a few little bugs here and there, but we're working through those at the moment. So you've got anything you want to add on to that, John?
I think it just comes back to James. We'd set out really to create a very smooth, streamlined pipeline that made it very easy, efficient, and quick to get to your outcome. So your character, in whatever format, whether that's streamed live in real time against your use case, or whether it's recorded. Certainly where we're really focused is on the streaming, and these live digital characters, and we have a variety of digital characters with different personalities. Well, it's not just Johnny Goblin stealing the show so much as he'll be disappointed to hear that. But it's the real. Yeah, there you go. He's not happy. He's not happy at all. We just wanted to share, our real time streaming capability with an alter ego that is, got an alter ego.
Yeah. And guys, the main kind of point that we're highlighting here is that when you have real-time streaming, you can fundamentally change the way the traditional animation pipeline's done. You can have an actor act things out in real time repeatedly until you get it right, and then tweak that animation file post capture. You can do live streams to screens, to production areas. You can have performers and characters based anywhere on the planet interacting and connecting in real time, which is what a lot of us have always kind of dreamed of. And although there's no metaverse, actually this technology would stream straight into a live human being in terms of like a metaverse. I say there's no metaverse. There's no dominant metaverse, I should say. But this type of technology could stream straight into all of those. It's at the end of the day, we're exploring all of these different parameters. Just doing streams like we're seeing right now in terms of kind of being able to talk to the character and interact in real time.
yeah, exactly. And unfortunately for Johnny, we don't have the disco ball that we would normally have to demonstrate today.
Yeah, that's for another time.
To merge into his dance moves. I mean, are there any more questions? Any more comments? We'd love to get your feedback. Please feel free to push some into the comments. If you want to reach out post this webinar, please do. We're always open to have conversations with people in industry, get your feedback. So please do. And I'm sure Johnny would be delighted with that as well, wouldn't you, Johnny?
Certainly would.
There you go.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, yeah, as John says, if there's anything you've got coming up that you think that'd be really cool, or you've got an application that you can kind of see that we haven't kind of covered, then do reach out. We're really keen to understand what the industry might use with this type of technology. We've identified at least 5 of them that we've kind of covered in this kind of talk. But if there's anything specific, then contact us either on our main webpage, on any of the social media handles, or contact us directly via our own social media handles, on especially LinkedIn. Do reach out.
I think John's telling you you're talking too much, James.
I think he is.
No. The whole communication thing.
Right, Johnny, would you give us a wave goodbye, and we'll cut you out. I think you're going to cause us more problems. So, but yeah, you can kind of see where the technology is able to kind of take us. And as I say, that is It's the first time we've actually shown that. That is using the iPad app, which we've never shown before. So yeah, just for this kind of conversation, we just wanted to kind of like give everyone an opportunity to see what that looks like, and where that kind of tech's going. And what you may know, for those of you that have used the app already, you'll see a huge difference between where we started in terms of our character that exists in the current app and what we're showing you now. And this is, what you're getting glimpses of are the new director apps and the new ways that people will be able to direct in the future performers. So, if you're a director and you've got a production, this is the way that we foresee, certainly with our tech, where you will book performers and the performers will appear as the character in a 3D space, and you will see it with the ability to spin around it, but rendered so that you're actually kind of, you're giving direction based upon the vision that you have in your head, as opposed to seeing a robotic stick man or a blob, for instance, which is often the case. That's in the future. So we're still working our way towards that.
Yeah, and thank you very much for taking your time to join the webinar today. We hope you've got some value from it as well.
Yeah, and actually, John, I don't know if you want to just pull up. There is one last slide that just highlights the interaction. So this is, this is what John was referring to earlier. I'll quickly manage to, as we were talking, find that and stick that up. That is a moment at the Leap show where, and we have many of these, where because you have a live interaction, you get the children copying the character. And it was fantastic. And, it was that human to human moment, which was absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, there was a lot of those at the show. It's a real, fantastic way to kind of get engagement as a brand, for sure.
Yeah, real powerful moment. Often multiple children, but sometimes you get these little special moments as well, where this child sort of wandered over on their own, a little bit hesitant to start with because it's a big goblin. But very quickly, hands on the screen, essentially, connecting with a 3D digital character is quite amazing, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if there's no more questions, then we'll bid you all good day, I guess.
Yeah, and thanks very much. Yeah, thanks very much for taking the time to show up today as well. Much appreciated.
Yeah, take care and have a great Easter when it arrives.
Yeah, thanks everybody. See ya.